I was asked by a subscriber if I could make a video about the effectiveness of Full Metal Jacket 223 or 5.56 rounds. More specifically, what kind of Full Metal Jacket ammunition performs the best. Whether due to limited selection at the stores, or limited budget, or other reasons, people may be tempted to use Full Metal Jacket ammunition for hunting or for self-defense. I'm not saying that people should use Full Metal Jackets for self-defense. I'm simply saying that if you were put in a situation where you had a choice between using Full Metal Jackets or certain death, it's clear which of the options are preferable. Ideally, you'd want to have a highly precise manufacturing process and the technical know-how to turn your Full Metal Jackets into soft points, but practically speaking, that's really out of the question for most everyone. First of all, if you are put in a situation where you are forced to defend your home with Full Metal Jacket rounds, you need to accept the fact that there is a high chance that the round will pass through your intended target and harm an innocent person somewhere behind them. The solution to this overpenetration problem is having the foresight to plan where exactly in your house would be the most advantageous for you to encounter an intruder and putting a barrier that will stop bullets behind where the intruder would be. Sand, for example, is cheap and is very good at stopping bullets, but it does not introduce the possibility of ricochet like other materials like concrete would. But you didn't click on this video to get advice on how to build and tastefully decorate a sand-filled bullet barrier for your house. So let's get to the main point. Almost every Full Metal Jacket round available is dependent on yaw, aka tumbling, to inflict damage. The earlier a bullet yaws after striking the body, the more damage will be caused and less energy will leave with the bullet as it exits the body. A bullet that impacts with enough velocity and also yaws may also give significant fragmentation and even more damage. I should also mention that impacting more dense body parts helps to encourage yaw. There is also the yaw that naturally happens to projectiles in flight. If a Full Metal Jacket round is angled slightly off-center when it impacts the target, the result is that the bullet yaws earlier inside the target. It gives better results on soft targets when this happens. If there is no yaw in flight or inside the target, all you get is what is known as an ice pick hole. I want to be clear though, the existence of yaw does not mean that the bullet is unstable. There is also a video that demonstrates that there is no difference in damage when a 1 in 7 twist rate barrel is compared against a 1 in 12 twist rate barrel, both using 55 grain ammunition. As long as the bullet is adequately stabilized by the twist rate, there is really no difference in effect on the target. However, there could be a difference if you are using something like a 62 grain round and a 1 in 14 inch twist, and the result is that it causes the bullet to tumble in flight and leave a keyhole in a paper target. This obviously will degrade accuracy, and it is unclear if there would be any significant advantage in effectiveness in return. I would like to be able to test this myself to see if there is any advantage, but I don't have any 1 in 14 inch twist rifles, so I'm unable to. Thanks to government testing, we know that with a variety of different 5.56 projectiles and velocities from different weapons, there is little difference in effectiveness between the projectiles when shot into ballistics gel. Perhaps most interestingly, M80 rounds fired from the M14 were very similar in effectiveness to the 5.56 rounds shot at close range. This also includes the M855 or green tip round that was heavily criticized by some for not being effective enough. There is obviously a difference between the types of Full Metal Jacket rounds, and each ammunition type has its own wound profile, but the bottom line is that the overall difference in effectiveness between these rounds isn't that much. I should also mention that M855A1, aka the Enhanced Performance round that came out not too long ago, is specifically designed to not be dependent on yaw to inflict damage. However, if limited ammo selection is the problem that you are facing, M855A1 may not be available. If you have types of ammo that aren't the regular M855 or M193, I would take a vice grips or similar sort of tool and take out a single bullet from each of the different types of ammunition. What you are looking for is the thickness of the jacket and if there is a significant depression in the base of the bullet. If a certain type of ammunition has an unusually thin jacket, this can make it more likely to fragment. Likewise, if a certain kind of full metal jacket ammunition, for example Federal 7.62x39, has the unusual feature of a depression in the base. Because of this, it yaws earlier than the standard full metal jacket rounds. However, we have to keep in mind that yawing earlier on average matters only to a certain point. If you have a theoretical 7.62 round that yaws at 23 inches of ballistics gel versus another round that yaws at 20, that makes a relatively little difference because with many shot angles, there is not enough of an amount of tissue in the average human to cause the bullet to yaw before it exits. The renowned Dr. Martin Fackler stated that there is little difference between the wounds caused by 55 grain M193 ammunition compared to the 62 grain M855 ammunition, but the M855 rounds have a slightly larger permanent wound cavity. So if you have a choice, use M855, but if you don't have a choice, don't worry too much about it. Generally speaking, 223 and 556 rounds can do fairly good at yawing early, which is why if you use them on coyotes, they can do a lot of damage to the pelts, even though coyotes are pretty small animals and they don't have much tissue. Though you may be tempted to use more rounds per coyote because the full metal jackets don't put coyotes down as readily as some expanding rounds do. If I were to guess why this was happening, it's because the full metal jackets may be yawing relatively little at the point of the vitals, or an expanding round would be doing more damage at that point. Likewise, some people feel that they can use 223s to hunt bears and moose, though it's unclear what kind of ammunition they were using. Anyway, the point here is that there's a really big difference in what can be done and what should be done. You can hunt large game with a 223, but that really isn't a good idea. It's an especially bad idea if you're hunting something like a brown bear that could easily kill you if things don't work out how you thought they would. A lot of people believe that full metal jacket rounds are only capable of causing pretty small or so-called ice pick wounds. That's not really true. There was an organization known as the Wound Data and Munitions Effectiveness Team that was formed around the time of the Vietnam War to study important things like the cause of death for deceased soldiers and the wounds that the living soldiers had received. This information got put into the WDMET study, and so we have the knowledge that in almost all the cases of 5.56 injuries, the projectile fragmented after striking the body. We also have a report from some of the very first uses of the AR-15 in combat in Vietnam. There were 5 different enemies hit with these full metal jacket rounds, 1 in the back, 1 in the stomach, 1 in the chest, 1 in the buttock, and 1 in the heel. Excluding the buttock wound, which caused death in approximately 5 minutes, all of the other deaths were instantaneous. Since the British government took the opportunity to heavily chloroform and shoot a lot of sheep a number of years ago, we also have some fairly good numbers on the size of wounds made from 223 full metal jacket rounds. These charts are split into 2 parts, the animals that were shot at 15 yards and those shot at 100 yards. We can tell by the high frequency of exit wounds that a good deal of these bullets that were fired did not stay inside the animals. Anyway, if you are for some reason forced to use full metal jacket 223 or 5.56 for hunting, just keep in mind that the damage will drop off precipitously when velocity starts getting lower at the farther ranges. I wish I could tell you exactly what kind of Remington and Norma ammunition was being used here, but they didn't even mention the weight of the bullets. The L1A1 at the bottom of the chart is the 7.62x51 FN-FAL, and it is obviously there for the sake of comparison. I'm Info Gunvault. I'm known for my articulate, detailed, and analytical approach. I dispel myths, talk about how you can avoid being attacked by angry bears, and I cover many gun-related topics. I've done a great deal of research for my videos, which is why I have hundreds of pages of notes and quotations. I'd like you to come along for the ride with me in my relentless pursuit of the truth.